How about your church background? Were your families involved in church?
Yes, we went to. I'm still a member at Antioch Baptist Church.
Okay.
That's where we attended church all of our lives.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
Is that still going? That church is that
it's
still
still
active?
going.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. It was built in, I believe Antioch. It's an old facade built around an old log structure. Antioch was a log structure,
Mm-hmm.
and I believe it's 1894 or some period in time like that the church was built.
Mm-hmm.
Buzz Williams donated the land, which he was a deacon there when I was just a wee boy,
Mm-hmm.
and it's still going.
Good deal.
Hmm. We was old shouting Methodist.
Shouting Methodist. Was that at Hackney?
Yeah, both churches we had what they call a circuit preacher. He preached maybe first Sunday Greenback, second Sunday in Union. So we lived about halfway between here, so that's where we went to church.
Okay.
We were Union, and then the fifth Sunday they always had a presiding elder, and the guest preacher they kind of come. So maybe one month if they had the fifth Sunday, he'd be at Munition, then maybe the next time it'd be at Greenback. And that's where they had that little thing. That's where we went. We went to church, both places. At Hackney Chapel and Greenback.
Describe what a shouting Methodist is.
Well, old shouting them churches they always sung good songs, and they just touching songs, I reckon. And Ain't Lottie Baker, if the preacher started preaching and then he sung one of them songs, well, Ain't Lottie would hit the floor. And the Jackson family, I think so many, the whole church would be more or less women and men. They'd be shouting. That's where I go there shouting. They just shouting, praising the Lord, and just it really.
Ain't Lottie Baker brought me into the world.
She brought me into the world.
In fact, that's going to be my next set of questions. I was going to ask you, I understand you took care of Hackney Chapel for years, right?
Well, last few years, I've been doing some work and trying to watch that in and spend a lot of money down there, and it just kind of got so it's running on down here. Then I was going to have them down there. I just like to see the church at least stand up. And that's what I'm after about. Going, that cemetery down there is full of my people. Everything about all my people, not all of them, but so many of the Thompson and they buried down there. Because my mother's people is buried at more than a lot of her people buried. And that's what's aggravated me. I spent a lot of money at that church down there in New York and kept it going for about the last, well, I haven't the last couple, 3 years. I just kind of wore me out.
Mm-hmm.
And,
Let's talk a little bit about military life. I take it you've got your Air Force cap on. So when did you serve, Tom?
From 63 to 67.
Okay. Did you go to Vietnam?
I did. I spent I was there in 1965, 66.
Tell me a little bit about your service then.
I wasn't no hero. I just served there. I was an aircraft mechanic,
Okay.
and I maintained airplanes. I was stationed at Thompson Air Base in Saigon,
Mm-hmm.
and I seen the effects of war, which I got plenty close enough to it that it's an awful thing, But I'm proud I served. I'd go back. I'd do it again. And
Thank you for
again.
your service. How about you? Did you have any military service?
well, I got the end of the Korean War. I was kind of a lucky guy, I guess, all the way through on the thing.
Mhm.
the first time they was going to draft me, why then before I was the company I was working for, he was in a car wreck, so he went to the selective board, told him, said, I can't work my business without that guy, so they extended me a, so I got in on the tail end of the Korean War. Could have stayed longer. I only stayed 7 months.
Okay.
It ended up there, and so I was in Fort Jackson, South Carolina, and I took my basic training down there at Fort Bliss, Texas. And I tell him, I said, back when I was young, I was really, so I used to pick up front end of a tractor for ice cream. So I got it back now. I can certain way. And that training, that's one thing, they put me in the military training there, but they finally transferred me over to the chapel. That's about all I do. And they'd see I'd get down in my back, and I couldn't do all them flips, you know how training is. It was pretty tough stuff. So they put me in the chapel there, and what I'd done, worked with it. And the chaplain, he really thought a lot of me in there. And so he spoke a word to someone in there about me, and so they said, well, they plan on, so we're going to just discharge him because he cannot do with military everything we have to do. So then, I forget who was the captain boy, I can remember that name. He called me to his office and told me, said, Thompson, we're going to send you home. So I said, well, thank God.
You weren't real disappointed, were you? Well, what lesson, Tom, did the military teach you in life?
That you need an education. I went through Greenback High School without one, actually. I was a goof off in school. And at some point in time, I realized that I needed an education. I'm self-educated. I've studied. I've done 2 years in college, but basically I'm self-educated. And an education it's a gift to have.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I wish I got more. Of course, we had done moved to Merville, like I say, and when my daddy moved back from Merville, I graduated from the 8th grade just like about 3 months. So that's when I got to come back down here and live a year. That's when I told you I decided I just work and make a living. So I have made it, but I sure have missed a lot of the education I wish I had gotten because I had some better things I could have done in life. But thank the Lord I made it, so that's it.
Well, what jobs did you have after you came out of the military? What did you mainly do?
Basically, I've been mechanical in the mechanical field all my life. I was machinist. I've been mechanic. I've done basically. Like I said, I'm self-educated.
But those are good jobs, though.
Pardon me?
Those are good jobs.
I had enough field work when I was growing up on the farm.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't want that. I wanted to better myself some way, and like I said, if I just knuckled down in high school, I would have been better, but I didn't. And I could read and write and all that, but my education was incomplete, and I was determined that I would learn what I needed to know to advance myself. I wanted to actually do better than the way we were brought up, poor. I tried to, which is a mistake in a lot of ways. I wanted to give my children more than I had, and I have, and I think sometimes that's a mistake. That on that, looking back in hindsight, the way I grew up wasn't too bad. We didn't have a lot, but we were always fed, and we were always happy.
Sure.
My kids is always fed, but they wasn't always happy.
Yeah, I relate. How about you, Mr. Wall?
Well, I like to say I went to work. I went at different things. I started working at a service station there and doing things. Worked there about 4 or 5 years out there, and then I had a cousin. He was in a little landscaping business, and so he taught me in helping him. So I got to playing in the dirt with him a little while, and I kind of liked it. So there's another company come to me and wanted me to go to work for them. They sent around Brandley Kessler Construction Company. So I started working for them, and I worked there about 9 years, I guess, for them. And they, the first, I said this way, I'm proud of it, that they put me as the first black person as a supervisor over their equipment. And I didn't have any trouble. I had a lot, some of them. And I got a few people fired because they didn't get mad at me. They may have got mad at me, but they always, after later, they come back and apologize. So I stayed with them 9 years. Well, I was in bigger dirt with them, and so they went out of business. Whether the thing come up and they didn't get going, they split up and made 2 different companies. So I bought me a little high lift. So I started pushing dirt for myself. So I done it, started in '62, stayed into it till 1999. The state forced me out of business. They didn't like my building on Middlebrook Pike in Knoxville. So I ain't done anything since 2000. So
Well,
piddle around.
was it called Thompson Construction Company?
Yeah, Walter Thompson Excavation.
Okay.
Got to be doing a lot of work, and I was on Gay Street. I'll never forget one day when the boys come out, a fella I knew him, and he said, "Well, our discussion at the Chamber of Commerce meeting today was you all the way through." I said, "What?" He said, "We just talked about you. If you had education, you'd be one of the smartest men in Knox County in the grading business." He said, "That's what they talked about." He said, "Because the way I made friends and done my work, honest."
It's a great compliment.
And, yeah, and that's what he said. He said, "You'd be the #1 excavation grade." But I never got that big, but I got enough to make a living, and that's where I'm at there now. So I haven't done anything. Piddle around on this ground I got up there now, mowing and get out there mowing, playing around now. That's about all I'm doing.
Growing up and from childhood to adulthood, who was your greatest influence on you growing up? You can take a minute to think about that one. But the greatest influence on your life was who?
My mother.
And why is that?
I don't know. Just always upheld my mother. She was a good Christian lady, and she gave us a church background,
What did she teach you?
morals.
That's enough said there. Yeah. Yeah. Your greatest influence growing up?
Well, my parents was really good. Of course, like I say, I think about my cousin, Harry Porter. I can't say what he said when he couldn't talk me. I can't do it ain't that man. But that's after when I was working at the service station. So he come to me because his wife was my cousin. I called him cousin too. She named me. So Gertrude did. So he come up there where I was working at service washing cars. There wasn't no fishing, but it was a job. So he said, "Well," said, any dumb ass can wash your car. I said, get you a job and go to work so you can make you some money. That's the words he told me. I guess your grandparents, that's the words he told me.
Yeah.
Well, he said, I need a man to help me. And so I said, okay. And he did promise and more money, and I was making washing cars. So that got me started. I said a lot of influence on me down there, and I just kept growing up with it there and then. So, but that's the words he said. I'll never forget it. So, but then I had to work with him. Well, I worked with him about 2 years. I had started to work for Brandy Kessler before we met together. So I've stayed in the field working all the time, and she didn't like that kind of living. She wanted to stay in the streets, so I had to let her go to the streets. I mean, that's her life. Everybody picks their own way they want to do. So I got 2 daughters. You've seen, well, both of them down there, so they do pretty good.
So they live in Louisville.
Yeah, they live a little bit close to Sharon, Sterling. So my ex-wife, she's in a nursing home. I ain't rejoicing of that. I ain't never wished her bad luck.
Another character there, Bootleg Whiskey.
Well, that's-
Okay, see, now that's interesting.
But names, I don't like to use
You don't have to have a
proper
name.
names, but we had those type of people there.
Mhm. So was there very much
We had-
bootlegging going on?
We had everything here in the country that they had in the big city. We had the mean guys, the good guys, the drunks, the bootleggers, the prostitutes. You know, in a small community, whatever you could find whatever you wanted.
Yeah, all
And-
types of people, ain't it seem like.
I don't know.
Well, you were talking about the bootlegging. Was there very much of that going on in
Quite a bit.
Glendale?
Quite a bit. There was 3 or 4.
Used to, yeah. There's a lot of that went on around it.
But that was a necessity. People made their living off of that. And coming out of the Depression years and stuff like that. It was a way of life. It was a way of living. Immoral in one sense of speaking, and it wasn't in another. Those people had to make a living also.
Yeah,
But,
I've heard stories of farmers, especially during the Depression and right after it. That's the way they sold their corn.
Right. It's either toted it by the gallon, it was by the bushel. Didn't weigh as much.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, everything was tougher back then going on. Yeah, everything was people trying to make a living. It was everything went on like he said. It was about everything in the neighborhood. You had good neighbors, you had bad neighbors. It's just like it is.
A lot of farming in Glendale.
Yeah. There's a lot of farming. That's what all went around here, farming money.
Yeah, basically. it was
Yeah,
where
there wasn't nothing going. Then of course,
people earned their living.
Yeah.
And
when Fort Loudon Dam started, I think that's what broke things. That started kind of. That's my knowledge. That's the worst. Not the worst thing, but I had several people go head to Fort Loudon Dam over. That's where they went to make a living. Then everything went to booming, going up. Then going to the Lumen Company and moving out. That's what happened to the section down here. Everybody went to the Lumen Company and all the places get better job, more money, and things like that. But all the Jackson down there, they went to the Lumen Company. And that Tate boy, you talking about Nunn's boy, he went to work at the Charles. He went to work down at the dam. He particularly didn't make a big money. And my uncle, he liked to log. He had a job logging